All right, so welcome everyone to episode 41 of Tuesday Tech Talks. Happy December, glad to have you guys here, and happy to have Rob Bentley in the house to show us a little bit more about Quizlet. He is our resident expert, so I will start the slides and turn the time over to him. So take it away, Mr. Rob.
All right, thanks, Clint. So I'm excited to be here to be able to present on Quizlet. Quizlet is a tool that I used for many years. I used to be a Spanish teacher as well as a language arts teacher, and Quizlet was around back then and was a fantastic tool that we used quite a bit.
Way back then?
Yeah, all the way back then. But since then, Quizlet has just been adding more and more features, including a couple of I think features that take it really to the next level, make it a much more useful tool. So why use Quizlet? Here are some of the, I think, best things about it. First, like it says there, students can practice your content anywhere as long as they have a smartphone or some other, device that can access the internet through a web browser. So, as a Spanish teacher, I would create vocabulary lists in Quizlet and also other content, not just lists of vocabulary. And then I could share those out to the students. And, if they were, in line to go to a movie or whatever, they could pull out their smartphone and they could practice the content. So that's how I used it when I was teaching Spanish and language arts, was a way to provide students with an easy and effective way to practice the content that I was teaching and that they needed to master. And if that's all you're going to use it for, I think it's great. There's some good things about that, but it's capable now of much more than that. Now, if you do want to use it to so that your students can practice class content anywhere, there's two basic modes that they can use. There's just flashcard mode, and it's really at that point just like digital flashcards. A word appears on the screen, you can tap it, and then it flips over and you can see the definition that goes with that word. Okay, so that's flashcards mode. But there's also a games mode where the students can practice your class content, whether it be vocabulary or anything else, and they can practice it in the form of games. There's like 4 or 5 different games that they can play. And these are just one-player games. They're just kind of little, almost like little arcade games that they can practice by themselves to help them learn. So that's the first reason to use Quizlet. It's a resource for your students, and they can use it to practice. The second reason to maybe use Quizlet is because you can do a whole class game using something called Quizlet Live. This was developed just a few years ago, I think about 3 years ago. But anyway, this is meant to be an in-person activity and a game. You would divide the students up into small groups, and I'll tell you more about it in just a minute, but it's basically a small group contest where students collaborate with each other in small groups against the other groups. So it's both collaborative and competitive at the same time. And I've tried this with lots of different, groups, different ages, and it is, it's a good, effective way to get students thinking and working together to solve a problem and, to practice course content. And then the third reason to use Quizlet, just recently, literally I think it's like 2 weeks ago, Quizlet came out with a new feature called Quizlet Checkpoint. And this is meant to be kind of like a way to do formative assessment. Okay, so you can teach your students something, and then you can bring up Quizlet Checkpoint and run it, and your questions will appear, the students will answer, and then you and your students will be able to see right away, okay, who is understanding and who maybe needs to work on it a little bit more to be able to master the content. Like I said, it is the newest Quizlet feature. I attended a presentation that Quizlet did on this new feature, and during that they said that they will be adding even more activities and games to Quizlet in the near future. Games and activities that are collaborative, meant to be used with a group. So anyway, there's some exciting things ahead, even more exciting for for the future with Quizlet. So let's go ahead to the next slide. I wanted to just tell you a little bit more about Quizlet Live. This one's going to be kind of hard to demonstrate because it is meant to be done live in person, face to face. So instead of demonstrating this one, I just want to describe it. So the way it works is you as the teacher would provide students with a list of, again, vocabulary or other content in your class. The example here is, you can see there's capitals and the countries that go with them. And in the example that you see on the screen, the class, let's say of 30 people, has been divided up into groups of 3. So here we have Alex, Karun, and me all on the same team, right? So 3 people on the team. The question comes up of Cairo, and the answer might be in my list that I receive. So you can see I have Zimbabwe, Papua New Guinea, Egypt, and Australia. Those are the possible answers that I see. Okay, and of course the right answer is there, Egypt, but in some cases I won't even have the right answer. Karun might have the right answer, or Alec might have the right answer. Does that make sense? So you can't just rely on, I've got the answer here, it's one of these 4. I'm going to make my best choice and just guess. No, you can't rely on that. It could be on one of your teammates' lists. And so what this does is it encourages students to collaborate together and to talk about it, okay? And say, oh, I think it might be Zimbabwe. Oh, no, I don't think it is. I think it's Egypt, and so they debate it. Now with this example that you see here, it's kind of simple. It's just, either the capital or you don't. Yes, talking about it could help. But imagine, instead of just a city, a capital city and a country, imagine an equation in a math class, or imagine a sentence in a Spanish class, or something else that has to be really thought through. You can't just, it's not just drill and practice. Okay, so if there was an equation here, the three people on the team would sit down, talk about it, try it out on paper maybe, and then say, okay, I think the answer is this. Who's got that answer? And then they each look at their devices to figure out who has the correct answer, and they select it. And so anyway, one of the things I like about Quizlet Live is it's not just another formative assessment tool like Kahoot. Many of you are probably familiar with Kahoot or quizzes, and I like those. Those are great. But in many cases, it's just one person alone looking at a question and then answering, just kind of on their own. Yes, they're competing, but it's an individual thing in many cases.
Plus, this gets rid of that want to just smash a button, whatever it is, and not even think about it. I think it's
right.
Yeah,
this one doesn't put too much emphasis on speed. It's more about, let's figure this out. Let's put our heads together, figure out what the right answer is. So I really like that. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And I just wanted to mention these couple of key features, and then we're going to take a look at actual Quizlet.com. So a couple of the key features one of the greatest things about Quizlet is that there are already thousands and thousands of pre-made study sets. So you don't need to, don't expect to have to create everything yourself. Okay. And it correlates to almost every textbook and topic. So in 2008, actually it was 2007, I was still teaching Spanish. We got a brand new textbook, and I thought, okay, there's no way this is in Quizlet. It was just barely published, and I typed it in. I did a search for the textbook that we had just purchased, and already every single chapter had vocabulary lists and other content already in Quizlet. So it really is amazing. That it will match the core curriculum. It'll match your textbooks in most cases. And if you're not using textbooks, that's fine too. Just type in any topic, and chances are there's going to be some content already created. Now, if you really want to, you can create your own study sets. When I taught Spanish, there were a few words here and there that I taught that weren't in the textbook. And so it sometimes makes sense to create your own, and you can do that. All right, let's go ahead to the next slide. On the next slide, there's just, we're going to try it out, but in the slide that follows, and we don't need to bring it up now necessarily, but there's a list of some resources that will help you as you begin using Quizlet. But if it's okay, Clint, at this time, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll share those links once we're done. So
sounds good. Okay, so here we have Quizlet.com, and you can send your students here, or you can go to Quizlet, or both, to start the experience. Sometimes when I talk to my students about this, I would just say, if you want a great way to practice, just go to Quizlet.com and search for our textbook. So notice that without even signing up, you don't have to log in, you don't have to do any of that. You can just go in and type in materials or content or topics that you want to practice. So Shakespeare, do a search, and it brings up activities that you can practice. Now I am signed in, and but students don't have to be signed in order to access
no
study
student accounts
sets.
necessary.
No student accounts necessary. You can, they can sign up if you can set up a classroom basically, and then they can enroll in that if you want to, but it's not necessary. So let's look at an example just of the most basic use of Quizlet. If I just did a search for states and capitals, and you can see there's 3 study sets that come up, and these are just the 3 most popular. If I click view all, you'll see that there's a bunch of other study sets that have been created that I could choose from, but I'm going to go with this one here, states and capitals. I just click it, it brings up 50 flashcards, okay? And you click, and it's just as simple as if it were a flashcard. Okay, so this is what Quizlet used to be. It used to be just this. And even then it was, I think, useful. But now students, in addition to just clicking through those terms, the states and the capitals, in addition to that, they can go here to the left, and they can click on these different activities or games. Okay. Let's look first at a couple of the games. Okay, so there's one called Gravity, and you're trying to protect the planet from incoming asteroids. Just click Get Started, and there are a few settings that you can adjust, making it harder or easier. And then you just start the game. Okay, Virginia. Okay, what's Virginia? Let's see. let's see. I should be better at my capitals. I should have picked a topic that I'm better at, actually. That's what I
Slipped
should
my
have
mind
done.
too.
Okay, Richmond. Oh yeah, should have known. Okay, so the planet just got destroyed, but even if you get it wrong, you're supposed to type it in. Okay, Minnesota. Okay, help me out here.
Is it Minneapolis, St. Paul?
Minneapolis. Yeah, thank you. Okay, now some of this is a spelling thing, right? Like you got to be pretty good at spelling to be able to do it. But this is one of the games, St.
Awesome.
Paul. Okay. Okay.
Birmingham?
Yeah.
Nope.
Nope. We need to review this. But you get the idea. You get the idea. We're trying to knock out those asteroids before they hit. So kind of a fun but simple, simple activity that you can do. There's also a match game. Okay. You're trying to match the items that go together, and if you do, they disappear, and you're timed, and you do get points based on how well you do. In addition to those games and a couple others, there are also some things that I think are pretty useful, like a dictation activity. They call it spell, but I can just click here, and you probably didn't hear that, but it said I think it said Oregon, which makes sense. Salem. Okay, so now I have to spell Massachusetts. So it's kind of a dictation practice, right? Where you have to type what you hear. Okay. There's also a practice test. So I can just click practice or just click test, and it generates a test for the students. Okay, so those are all great activities, but they're meant to really be done by the students by themselves on their own to help them prepare for a test or to master content. Okay, let's look now at how I could do a similar thing with, or how I could take a similar list of terms and vocabulary, but instead of it just being a one-person activity, let's do this as a whole class. And again, this is where it gets hard for me to demonstrate this for you. But here's a list of terms and content related to Shakespeare. Okay. So in this case, what I could do, let's see, I'm actually going to go back and pick this one here. Okay. So what I'm going to do, instead of choosing one of these study activities, is I'm just going to click live in the upper left corner. Okay. And this is where, if we were in person, I could put you into groups of 3 or 4 or however many I choose. And then I could click Classic Live, and we would have that activity that I described earlier, where there's a question, a prompt, and the answer could be on my device, but it could be on yours or another person on my team. So you have to work together on it. That's how you would do it. Just click that button and answer a few questions, and the activity is ready to go. At this point, though, since we can't really demonstrate that one together, let's look at the brand new feature that just came out in Quizlet. It's called Checkpoint. And this one we can do virtually, while we're apart here. So I'm going to click on Checkpoint, and it brings up a list of questions and answers, and only I can see this normally, right? The students normally can't see this, but what I'm doing is I'm just selecting some of the questions that I want my class to work on. Okay, so those are the ones I want us to work on. I click Create. Okay, and I don't know if you probably can't hear what I'm hearing, but I'm hearing some music, some pleasant music. And while the music plays, you're supposed to go to Quizlet.live. And Clint, I think, is going to put that in the chat if he hasn't already. So go ahead and click on Quizlet.live and then put in this code. and then you'll be added to this activity so that you can participate in this checkpoint. Okay. Now, of course, imagine that before we do this activity, imagine that I've just taught a wonderful lesson on Shakespeare. You've learned all about, some of his plays and his background, his biography a little bit. And so you can see as people go to Quizlet.live and put in the code, it then asks for their name, and then they're added to the activity. I'm going to go ahead and click create activity. I think you can join late. If anyone else wants to still join the activity, I'm pretty sure you can still go to Quizlet.live, put this code in, and should be able to participate. But I'll click to begin. So for those of you that put in the activity, you should be able to, you should see the question and the possible answers, and then just put in what you think the correct answer is. All right. The year Shakespeare became part owner of the Globe Theater. Looks like 2 people got that right. So well done, 1599. So as you can tell, I mean, it's really not trying to be Kahoot, right? It's not as fun, I guess, as Kahoot or some of those other kind of formative assessment games, but it is meant to be a way that you can do some formative assessment. The students can see, where they're maybe lacking, and you as the teacher can see what part of the content you might need to keep practicing with your students. I would then click continue, and the next question comes up, and we'll just do maybe one more question after this one.
I wouldn't gauge it on a activity, not as fun as. I mean, it's still a way to, gamify and present the resources you're already using in another way, which is in a good review.
Exactly. That's the thing. With Quizlet, you've already got, either you created a vocabulary list or you got one from the collection that they have available. And yeah, this gives you another thing that you can do with that vocabulary list or the list of questions or whatever that you've created. So, okay, this is our last checkpoint question.
I misread the question.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. Are you sure you want to leave? Progress won't be saved. That's okay. But that's the latest and greatest addition to the Quizlet list of tools. Like I said, I was recently in a webinar that Quizlet produced, and they said that this in-class, these live activities that they're doing, they're going to be adding more and more. Right now it's just the one where you have to be in person with the devices and people getting different answers on different devices, and then the one that we just did, checkpoint. But the plan is they want to develop this into multiple. So I really like Quizlet. I think it's kind of a no-brainer as far as like sharing it with your students, because it's a resource that they can access to practice really any content. So that part is kind of a no-brainer. From there, I hope that you'll consider, would you want to do a Quizlet live activity with your students? Would you want to do a checkpoint activity with your students? I hope you'll consider using that, because it really is a great tool. So looks like we're just about out of time. Are there questions? Are there questions that you have for me or Clint about Quizlet Live, or actually just any Quizlet question?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Can't hear. Sorry, we're trying to mess with the feedback thing, but one thing I like on Quizlet is you do that study for like, let's say 20 minutes. They're studying the terms and things. They're playing the games. The first few times I did it, they didn't take it as serious as they probably should have. So then when you go to the Quizlet Live and you do the individual, they can do individual game competitions. Then they kind of see where they stack up against the rest of the class, like on an individual basis, and gives them one more thing. And then when you go to the groups, they get those 3 people on a team or whatever, 3 to 4 people. And then it really makes them focus. They don't want to, after the first day or 2 of doing it, they don't want to be the person that didn't study those terms and that, because they're kind of the weak link of their team or whatever. But the team can help them. But so it really does. They study that first 20 minutes way better by doing that. But I'd like to do the study thing and then individual competitions and then the live ones. And they love it. They really thrive on it.
Yeah, that's a really smart way to do it. You know, kind of starting individually and then building up to the collaborative and the groups. I like that. Yeah. Any other questions or ideas about using Quizlet?
Don't see anything in the chat. I've put the link to the roll in the chat if you guys want to do that, plus the links that Rob's got here in the slides. And I've also shared the slides link for anyone. So any other questions?
I was just going to add to that, if you like EMT classes or lawyer tests, anything like that, all those things are on there. It is flat amazing with the amount of stuff that's on there.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I went back to get my master's degree, in some of my courses, I used Quizlet to help me prepare. Nice. So it's not just for K-12, that's for sure. So
it's not just for brushing up on your state capitals.
No.
All right. Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it so much. Next week, that'll be our last Tuesday Tech Talk for the year. We will be coming back in January. But next week, we'll have Chris come and talk to us about Sora. We've got a giant regional ebook library that your students can access over the break, during the summer, anytime during the year. So they always have something to read with them, which is a wonderful thing. Also coming up tomorrow is Utah Ed Chat. Tomorrow's topic is blended learning that works, from Blake Pope at Weber School District. So he'll be leading that tomorrow. The link, I'll post the link for that in the chat here in a moment. Also have our next round of EdTech endorsement courses coming up. We've got the core course, Classroom Integration of Educational Technology. And again, this link will take you to the registration and more information for the SEDC cohort for all of these classes. So spring A, so starting in January also, we've got elementary engagement with Canvas, and then game-based learning and gamification. I think Rob is the author of that course, so we appreciate that and being able to use his courses. And then starting in March, kind of during the second half of next semester, both of these starting off in the first part. So the Canvas courses, this one is more focused at elementary engagement, and then enhancing your Canvas skills is, I think, more focused towards secondary teachers. And then the second half, we've got game-based learning, gamification, or a brand new course, Developing Digital Detectives, that's along the lines of research and stuff like that. So those are starting up. The registration for those is open right now. We do have an Ed Camp coming up January 8th in Richfield. We're calling it Ed Camp CUT, C-U-T, Central Utah. It's going to be at Red Hills Middle School on Saturday, January 8th. Registration is free. There'll be food, there'll be swag, there'll be door prizes, there'll be all kinds of good stuff. And Ed Camps are just kind of a fun, non-traditional educational conference where you meet in the morning for some snacks and breakfast, and you get a couple of Post-it notes, and you put up on the board what you would like to be discussed, like topics you want to discuss with other teachers, or if there's something you'd like to lead a discussion on, you can put that up on another board. But the content and the topics are totally driven by the participants who are there. It's the guys like me who have, 12 presentations in the can, we've got to leave those behind and just like actually talk to people. But it's always a good experience. We've got one coming up in Richfield on the 8th. Got the link to the roll in there. We'll post the archive there at my YouTube Tuesday Tech Talk playlist. And I think that's about it. Let me drop these all these links here to help and for your review. And I appreciate that feedback on GimKit from last week. I thought it was great too. And Rob was just saying that they've made some changes recently. I don't know if we were able to cover them really well yesterday, but they're kind of making it more free. Rob, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it used to be that with GimKit that you could only run a certain number of games. It was very, very limited unless you paid for the upgraded upgrade account. And they recently decided to open it up and make it a lot more free. There still is a pro account that you could pay for, but the free account is much better. So anyway.
All right. So we've run over a minute. I'll stop the